anyone who wants to participate in the morning light can come on closer. It'll be short, it'll be sweet, I promise it won't be boring. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Amma ba'd. I spent probably like roughly 2 hours or so last night, as well as some time throughout this week, just thinking about what I would speak about today. I did some research. I came up with like a Google Doc, and I had like all these hadith and like some key points I wanted to make, as well as Quranic ayat. And I came up with something, but literally 2 hours, 1 hour ago, before I had suhoor, I changed my mind. I said, I didn't want to talk about this, even though it was a noble topic to say. And I decided to take just this opportunity as a morning light to speak a little bit about myself, my journey as a Muslim. Some things that I found impactful and resonated much with me, and things that I think that other young Muslims can benefit from, things that I feel like parents can benefit from, and just some insight and some things that have left a profound impact on me. I think a lot of it goes to show you that, especially in the fact that a lot of times, the times I do get a chance to have the mic here is often a khutbah, and a khutbah is something that's has such a high importance and emphasis, as well as responsibility. It forces me to always be in this lecture mode, or this mode of having to prove a point. And morning light is something a little different, because it's just an opportunity for discussion, for conversations, and for thinking about things. And there's a time and place for both things in our lives as Muslims. And yes. Oh. And such. So I think firstly I just speak about my first moments, thinking about, looking back at life and thinking about what were my first interactions as being a Muslim. And all of it did come from the Saturday and Sunday school that my mom and dad put me in. And I know a lot of people here can resonate with that. I went to a Saturday Sunday school that was predominantly Desi mentality and Desi teachers, and if anyone is from Brown, they can understand what type of teachers there were, as well as what type of environment there was. There was this environment where there was this strict amount of reverence and discipline that had to be displayed at all times. There was this notion that the first line is only for the elders. There was this notion that you had to stand in a certain way, you had to wear certain things, and this notion of a smile, this notion of having a good time at the masjid wasn't really, expressed. And what this led to me as, a young Muslim, young male growing up in America, going to public school, it led to this, certain form of resentment, or not really resentment, but maybe just not really interested in being Muslim or being Islamic, or going to these classes. So for the majority of elementary school, middle school, high school, I really didn't place some large emphasis on my religion and praying. I did these things because my mom and dad told me to. I did these things because I felt like it was the right thing to do. I did these things because I felt like I had to do it. I never really did these things because I wanted to do it. I never really did these things because it had an impact on me, or that there was benefit in there for me. And throughout high school, I went to a high school that has a very large Muslim student association. So not only was this like a club that you can go to and speak to other Muslims, they had cool activities. They weren't just a lame group of brown guys or Arab guys that were just sitting there. It was actually cool and intriguing in high school. And even though I had that opportunity, I didn't go to the MSA. I didn't, want to go to the MSA. I didn't want to be affiliated with Muslims. And I think a lot of the things that us, young people grow up with is just this notion of really just wanting to fit in, wanting to be accepted, wanting to know that the things you do in your day, that they counted, and that they were, that not only that they counted, but that people recognized it. People recognized the things that you did. And being Muslim or going to the prayers, that just wasn't it for me at that moment. And then life went on. I entered college, and college came about. And in college, I had a good friend of mine that I knew from back in the day. He was part of the MSA, and he would tell me to come on by the MSA, and he would never push it on me. He would never be annoying with it. He would just tell me about this Muslim Student Association, and I decided to give it a shot. I gave it a shot. I went there once or twice. I won't lie, it was pretty awkward. Anyone who goes to MSA sometimes can tell it's a little awkward. There's different types of people. There's, there are those guys that are really adamant in their schoolwork. There are those people who are really chill. And it was just a different environment for me. And there were those people that went out of their way to make me feel welcomed, to make me feel, they let me lead the prayers despite my many mistakes in tajweed and, probably, my many other mistakes. They sat through a very, very, very boring and an embarrassment of a khutbah, which was my first khutbah, where I literally stood there, shaked, and read off a piece of paper. And they gave me that space to be myself and for me to be accepted for who I was. And for that first time, I felt this sense of, acceptance, appreciation, and just a sense of, true brotherhood or friendship. And I think in life, we have, many opportunities, especially for those of us who are here. You're here after a Fajr prayer in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Without a doubt, the majority of us are somewhat practicing, right? We would be more practicing than your average Muslim per se. And I think, one of the biggest lessons that I learned is that I appreciated how much that brother, took his time and reached out to me and cared for my well-being. And I try to pay it forward for my friends. The Imam can only reach so many people. The Omar Sulaiman on YouTube can only reach so many people. The only people who will watch those Islamic reminders videos are people who the Merciful Servant on YouTube. But then there are those people who don't like those pages. There are those people who don't come to the masjid. There are those people who think that anything with Islam is, I can't go there because people are going to judge me, or I can't go there because I don't fit in there. And, we're in that situation. We know that friend, and that's an opportunity for us to reach out to that person, right? Never in a judgmental way, never in a pushy way, but out of true care and sincerity that you reach out to that person and you check in on their well-being, right? And not just only leading off with hey bro, come to the masjid, you can go to the hellfire if you don't pray 5 times a day. Not even that, right? Just coming up to them and being a good friend for them, right? That's first and foremost, right? Before you come to them and try to give them da'wah, or before you come to them and try to tell them about Islam and coming to the masjid, even though they may be a Muslim, even though they're not practicing, even though they're drinking alcohol on the weekends and they're smoking weed and going to parties and stuff, and these things about them. And the way to approach it isn't to just go there and tell them that you shouldn't be doing this and you should be doing that. And I noticed that was one thing that really resonated with me. And then continuing on, I felt just a deep sense of appreciation for my teachers who have taught me many things. And as you grow in your spirituality and as your time being a Muslim, you see that there are lessons in many things, right? And that many different people can teach you different types of lessons. You can learn lessons from that innocent 6-year-old kid who, shares his cookie with his friend. You can learn a lesson from that, 78-year-old uncle who works hard despite being past that age of retirement, works hard for his kids and cares for his kids and his grandkids. You can learn lessons from your 24-year-old friend who takes his time out on his weekends to volunteer. And there are many different times in life where you can learn different lessons. And just looking back as my time as evolving and being a better Muslim, I went to the MSA. I felt that acceptance. That led me to go to classes to learn more about Islam, and then literally, Islam does the rest of the job for you. The more you learn about the religion, the more it just reels you in. The more it asks of you, the more of it that you want to give, the more that you give to the religion and to understanding the religion, the more gems you feel, and the more you just understand, how much of a truth it is. Because when it comes to talk of religion, it is this larger question, larger existential question of, what am I doing every day? That when I go to this career, when I go to this job, when I have this aspiration to be a business analyst, or I have this aspiration to be, a medical professional, or when I have this aspiration to be a lawyer, what is at the core root of it? And as we accomplish certain things, we notice that, there's always this deeper question, or there's always this, deeper sense of understanding that we always aspire for. And thinking about religion is that thing that's on the back of a lot of people's mind, right? Some people may numb it out by just focusing on matters of this world, such as, getting good grades, such as, not to downplay that, but, people may just focus on having a lot of money, hanging out with the opposite gender, or, there are certain things that people fill in that sense of, question. But at the end of the day, many people do think about just this larger idea of, what are we doing here? What is the purpose of life, and so forth. And I think back to my college days and learning more, and then having an opportunity to serve Muslims in my college MSA setting, and then just the opportunities that led me to meet such great individuals, that led me to be involved in such awesome organizations and initiatives, that led me to things such as responsibility, understanding, empathy, and all of it started, with that little push from my friend, and as well as an initiative from myself to look more into this religion and what this religion teaches. I'd like to end with just I guess a comment about what we're doing here today, as well as the next few days, as well as what we've been doing for the last few days, which is just search for the night of power. And this night of power, it is equivalent to 1,000 months. And the whole idea there is that there's a sense of equalizer in Islam, and that all of us come from different circumstances, and we've had different upbringings, we've had different experiences that have molded us to be who we are as individuals. And there's just this, liberating and empowering, feeling when you think about the night of power, that there's this one night that equates to 1,000 months. And the ummahs before, they never really got this. It's our ummah that got it. And there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions that, that there will be a group of people who will get the reward of 50 times, I believe it's 50 times of the companions. And the follow-up of the hadith, I don't know it verbatim, however, paraphrasing it, it goes as that it's people who practice a religion despite the difficulties that they'll face in that time. And, Allahu A'lam, but we may fall under that category. And it's just that idea that you get 50 times the reward of the companions. And that there's this other idea that you get 1,000, that one night equals 1,000 months. And there's this other idea that in Islam there are different equalizers. And that one act, all of us just prayed Salatul Fajr. But not all of us will get the same reward for praying that Salatul Fajr. One person is praying next to another person. One person's heart may be more in it than someone else's heart. And that, correlates to different types of rewards. And that's that notion in Islam, that it's never about the act, and it's never about, numbers. It was never about numbers. It's never about, I'm going to come to this prayer so I get 27 times the reward. And if I do it for five times in a day, it's 27 times 5, so I get XYZ amount of reward. It's all about your heart. It's all about, how much of an effort you put in. And I think, that's just so liberating, because so often in society, we're pushed to compare ourselves to others. We're pushed to, compare our success based off a numerical value. So often in society, there are these these requirements for what is success. And it's just so, liberating and empowering to know that religiously, you don't have to worry about those things. And that religiously, what you have to worry about is yourself, your own self-improvement, how much your heart is into matters, how much you're trying to improve. It's never about, having to understand this much Arabic. It's never about having to memorize this many ayat of Quran will make me a good person. It's never about, praying all 5 prayers at exactly the right time will, versus, not praying. It's never about, making extra prayers, or it's never, like a set formula. Everyone has their own path. Everyone has their own transition, their own growth. And, again, that's really, really just empowering, because it helps you focus on just yourself and your own growth. And I think that's my morning light here today. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions light many times in the Quran. He mentions how the Quran is light. He mentions how He subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself is light, as well as how He mentions that when you are a Muslim, when you are practicing, it's min al-dhulumati ila nur, that is from darkness to light. And I think my morning light here today is just a sense that your heart and sincerity can go a long way, more than your deeds can. And that you ask yourself, how much of an effort am I putting in? And, what am I doing all the things I do in life for? The career I'm aiming for, the family relationships I have, the money I have in my bank account. What are all these things for? And if they're for the right reasons, you still do matters of this dunya, you still engage in this world, and you will have just an immense spiritual experience with the matters of this dunya, as well as, hopefully, God willing, a reward from the matters that you engage in this world. And that the Muslims originally, they never made a distinction between this world and the next world, that all of it was intertwined, and all of it should, flow fluidly. And I think that's my morning light. The fact that, one can go much farther with their heart and with their intention than one can go with their actions. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it of benefit. And I was trying to make this more interactive than it actually was. But if there's any questions or comments, I'm always willing to listen. If anyone doesn't want to share on the mic, I'll be walking around. And yeah. So anyone, questions, comments? Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I'm Heidi here.
Oh, yes.
So what's your suggestion for kids who go to public school? And they usually go to Sunday school or Saturday school, right? And but at the same time, many of them, they are having difficulties to pray Jummah. And many of them, actually, majority of them, they skip praying Jummah. So any comments about that?
Okay, so growing up in public school, Jummah, I guess it depends on high school by high school. My high school did offer Jummah prayer. And if a high school offers Jummah prayer, that's great. Colleges, for the most part, do offer Jummah prayers. You can go attend it. But if your high school doesn't offer Jummah prayer, I've heard of individuals who have, asked the school to let them out early, or let them have their lunch break around Jummah time, and then they go to the local masjid. However, I do understand that a lot of people just miss the Jummah prayer, which I guess isn't ideal. However, depending on circumstances, you make your best effort, and whatever is out of your control is out of your control. But growing up in public school, it's interesting, and I tell myself that I would send my kids to public school as well, because I think sometimes sheltering kids isn't always the best option. And I think the strongest relationship and the strongest base that kids have is the home. And if the home is a loving, nurturing home where things are transparent, where there's a loving relationship and kids feel comfortable with their parents, I think possibly public school could work, and it gives them opportunity to be exposed to things which could be risky, but at the same time, kids find out one way or another. A lot of times I feel like parents put their kids in Islamic schools thinking that it's gonna hide them from everything, but in reality, kids speak to kids who don't go to public schools. Social media, makes everything apparent. So I think just having an open relationship with kids, and it starts from a young age, goes a long way. Me, myself, I didn't have that great relationship with my parents, and I don't really blame them. They're immigrant families. They're working so hard just to take care of the kids. And I found solace in just my friend circle. But yeah, I think just having a good group of friends or, a good loving family at home can go a long way, and no family is perfect. But I think that can go a long way in the development of a kid who goes to public school.
Thanks.
That is all.
So can you
Jazakumullah.
share how you practice Islam or deliver the message in your workplace?
Oh, yes. I work in a hospital. It's a very nice professional setting. And I learned from one of my good friends who, I call him like dawah man, because he takes every opportunity to give dawah. And I do take conversations sometimes. I think first and foremost, the best way to give dawah is just to be a good practicing Muslim yourself. I think if you're rooted in core fundamentals and that you practice your faith well, people will notice. People will notice when you don't hug someone of the opposite gender. People will notice when you're not drinking something in a random day in May. People will notice when you ask for a 5-minute break and they see you, bowing and, putting your head in a weird way in the break room. People will notice these things, and when they notice those things, people will ask you about it. So I think the best way to give dawah is dawah through action, and just, being a good Muslim, having good character, engaging in the religious activities, not necessarily telling your coworker like, hey bro, here's a pamphlet about Islam. Rather, you let the Islam in you speak. I think that's the best way to give dawah without being overly pushy and just, letting your actions speak louder than your words. Thank you all for joining us here today. We pray that what was said is of benefit. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.